Okay, we'll try it. Okay, excellent.
How you doing, man?
So wait. So did you see the Trump thing where they're like, so why are you and Epstein not friends? And he goes, well, they were stealing help. And they're like, the word's like, was one of them Virginia Goofrey?
Yeah, you Frey Roberts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of them. He's from me. And I was
he,
really
and
pissed.
he,
And I was like, what?
wait, he said yes to that question. He said yes. It
Yeah,
was Virginia.
that was one of the ones that he took. And I was pissed that he took her from me.
Wow, like how
And
that
you know
is.
she was just suicided recently,
I
right?
know,
You know
I
that,
know,
right?
I
Okay,
know.
okay, cool. Yeah. Just making sure,
hmm
making sure.
hmm
Unbelievable.
No, it's it is like pretty fucking mind-boggling how dumb. Like it's either. I mean, I guess maybe dumb is like the George W. Bush excuse, right? Well, he's just so dumb, right? Like he could not have seen this
Yeah, that was
coming.
that was different. That was different. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Yes.
But yeah, I'm
Yes.
not saying it's like one for one the same, but it's on the face. It seems so dumb. It
Right.
seems so tone deaf. Like okay,
Yes.
like like the weekend before this one, I went with Maria to visit her mom. Her mom is like I don't know. Her mom is like kind of like in the. I wouldn't say she's full out MAGA, but she's pretty MAGA or MAGA adjacent.
Okay.
And when me and her meet, whenever we hang out, me and her get into like not even heated political debates. It was just we just go deep, and 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 I said to her, I'm like, because at some point I was like, and I usually hold off and try to allow her to initiate
Hmm.
because me, I'll just go on. And so I'm kind of like, all right, I don't want to force the issue, but every time we hang out, we go deep and actually it's really enjoyable because even though me and her see a whole lot of things differently, you know what, compared to the Blue Anon crowd, like she's not QAnon, but she's like QAnon adjacent in some ways. But like at least the QAnon or QAnon adjacent crowd, at least they're like open mind. It's weird. I never thought we'd reach this point where they are so much more open minded
Yeah,
about what.
I was like listening to Candace Owens. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I'm like, what the
exactly.
fuck is
It's like what the
that?
fuck has happened?
This is strange. That's
Yeah,
weird.
this is
This
yeah,
is
like
like, hey, did you
yeah,
see that new Tucker Carlson clip?
yeah. I
That's really good.
know. Dude, fucking Marjorie Taylor
I
Greene
know,
just
I
came out
know,
and
I know.
and, and said it's a genocide. And it's like I saw this on Facebook, some New York Times article saying Marjorie Taylor Greene comes out and calls it genocide. And so whatever, I really like reading comments and seeing how people are reacting to these articles and headlines. And people from this New York Times article were like, I guess the world is coming to an end because I'm actually agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, yes,
And like almost every single comment was, I can't believe I'm agreeing
yeah,
with Marjorie Taylor
right.
Greene. And then occasionally you'll get some like Zionist, who's like, no, like this is not a
Yeah,
genocide. And it's
we're
like,
like
oh
normally
my.
that would have like slipped in like no problem, but now it's
Mhm.
like this. It's like wait, wrong bot, wrong.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Reprogram your bots, like bro, like read the room. We're on a different tip right now, you know.
Yeah, totally. It's like, do not engage. These are not the droids you're looking
Yeah,
for.
like what? Like
But they only. It's like their minds, and I come from this. I mean, I remember that first time we were at Closetron. We were outside of Closetron, and you were eating one of your like avocado,
oh my god, yeah, yeah, I love doing those. Mhm.
mozzarella sandwiches, and you were like, "Hey, I don't know if you're gonna, this might offend you or bother you, Josh, but have you looked into the USS Liberty?" And I was like, uh, I don't know what the USS Liberty is,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and then you told me the story about
Right,
it,
right.
and I was like, that sounds weird. I'm like, I'll look into it,
Yeah.
and then that was like the beginning of my like opening my eyes away from the Zionist propaganda,
Oh, yeah.
where
Yeah.
I had been against the neocons up until that point, but like the neocons, you could say are like a whatever, are some offshoot or a chicken or the egg of the Zionism. Like they're part of the same grouping,
Mm.
like they come from the same place. But
Mm-hmm.
I had never put the two and two together. But when and I'm just trying to say like that before that, I had been so brainwashed.
Mm.
Ever since I was like a little kid, you know, being born 31 years after the Holocaust, you know, I had just been born and raised to believe, the world's out to get us. They all hate us.
And never
And
again. And never again, right?
never again. And but I remember I used to really struggle with it, as I still kind of do. But part of my MO, or part of my motivating force, is like really goes back to like when I was a little kid, when I was younger than our our sons, getting this fear drilled, like the Holocaust, and the torture, and the killing and all this. But I'm just saying, at like 4 or 5 years old, it like scares the shit out of you, as it's intended. Um, and I'd never really questioned it, and I'd always assumed that anyone who spoke ill of Israel
Mm.
was an anti-Semite, you know, and it was pretty clear cut and pretty black and white. And then all these years later, so like now I can understand how these people see the lens they see it through, why they see it through. Like they've been traumatized, like I was, and it wasn't just by the storytelling. It was, because this had happened so recently, and there are good reasons for it. It wasn't just irrational. But at this point, I don't know if you ever saw, that comedian R.A. Shafir.
Yes.
Okay, so he went on like the Howie Mandel show, maybe like I don't know, like in the past year or two,
Mm-hmm.
and Howie Mandel is, he's Jewish also, and so is Ari Shafir, and Howie Mandel was talking about, can you, and he's like all germophobic, like almost
Yeah,
never leaves
I
his
know.
house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he's going on to Ari Shafir, and Ari Shafir, his stand up comedy special was called Jew. He doesn't hide it,
Yeah.
and but he's kind of like me in certain ways. He's like Jewish, but he's got like this dark sense of humor where he can laugh at himself and all these things in a
Yeah.
way like not everyone can.
Yeah.
And Howie Mandel was like, "What do you think about like the soaring anti-Semitism? This is really scary, and this is dangerous, and I'm fearful for my life and the life of my family, safety of my family, stuff like that." Ari Shafir let him go, let him say his thing, and then was just like, "Dude," he's like, "Do you ever leave your house?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well,
Not
he
really.
could tell he's being set up, but he basically was like, rarely,
Yeah.
you know." He's like, "Yeah, because it sounds like you're getting that from like corporate media and stuff and social media,
Yeah.
but like, and that's like the opinion of someone who doesn't really go outside and leave their house much." He's like, "I've been traveling around the world doing stand up
Yeah.
as Jew," and he's like, "I haven't experienced a
Mm.
single episode of
Mm-hmm.
anti-Semitism,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very Jewish looking, and so I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but,"
Sure.
he's like, this view that you have that it's just
Yes.
you're going to walk outside
Yes.
and people are just going
Yes.
to come attack you because you're Jewish.
Yeah.
Like he's like that's not based on reality. It is certainly not a prevalent reality. This is a media driven perception, and I saw my dad, like right around New Year's, maybe like right at New Year's, let's say, and he was like, "I'm really worried about the rising anti-Semitism
Mm-hmm.
and all this." And I was like, "Well, Dad, I'm like, honestly, I think that Jews are going to have to make a choice. They're going to have to choose between Judaism and Zionism.
Mm.
Like it's almost like you can't have them both moving forward
Mm-mm.
in a way because Zionism, as I was taught growing up, was this that the Jews needed a homeland, you know, and we need to protect ourselves with this homeland, and so it made a certain sense after the Holocaust, the pogroms, the Inquisition, and all the anti-Semitism and all that. Um, but now over time, like I think the definition that Jack Cruz basically said that I agreed with, which is that basically Zionism is using Jews as
Mm.
human shields
Mm.
to further the aims of British imperialism. And I was like, that's a great definition, and I would extend it to not just British but Anglo-American imperialism, because it really is whatever this great empire now that we could debate what the head of the snake is, and I kind of whatever would say the head of the snake really is in like Wall Street and the city of London, because Wall Street is kind of like you could argue like to some extent an extension of the city of London, like city of London, not like London, but the city of London.
Yeah, the economic policies that it's still the same game. It's still the
And
same
but I
thing.
just mean like what I'm trying to say is like it's not like London, like just random people
Yeah,
from London. It's like there's this thing called the City of
yeah.
London, just
It's
like
its
there's
own separate
District of
thing.
Columbia
Yeah.
and the Vatican City or whatever, or the United Nations are these. They're like yes, DC and United Nations are in America, but they're kind of like their own little sovereign entities within
Mm-hmm.
America.
Mm-hmm.
And City of London is kind of like that, from what I
Yeah.
understand. I'm sure someone could legitimately take issue with some of the nuance of what I'm saying, but the gist of it is right on. That
It's kind of like the
that's their
Vatican
law.
too. It's kind of like you create these separate, or like the Battelle National Laboratories and stuff. You
Yeah.
create
Mm-hmm.
within. You always need a couple of like just non-breakable safe
Well, like
boxes that you can keep shit in. You always need a few that it's
yeah,
like no, even no, they're complete. It doesn't matter if they're doing illegal shit. They're the way we created it. They're not bound by any laws. And it's like, oh wow,
yeah,
nice, good thinking.
right. So like the CIA can't operate, or technically is not legally allowed to operate within the U.S. or spy on U.S. citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Mm-hmm.
has things like Palantir and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. These groups like
So you
the
have other people do it
national.
for you. Yeah, of course. So yeah, of
Mm-hmm.
course.
You compartmentalize the risk.
And that's what we did. Right. That's what we did with all the advanced technology too. And what I realized recently, I was wondering why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And I think and I hadn't really come up with a good idea. I mean, right,
Mm-hmm.
there's always the underlying idea of compartmentalizable, but what I
Yep.
realized is I think in some ways
Mm-hmm.
perhaps the highest levels of like business is more cutthroat than the highest levels of like the military industrial complex, and so actually if you need to keep things secret and you need to compartmentalize it, add in a couple of dashes of money into it, and then you're going to have people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
People will murder people over protecting the banana market, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
let's just murder these people and we can keep our banana production going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's bananas. So you go up to like the most powerful weapons ever discovered. Yeah. The underlying ethical need to keep things secret. Okay, you compartmentalize it as much as possible, and you make sure people know there are consequences to your actions, and you combine it with the business world, the cutthroatedness,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
psychopathic, sociopathic nature that already is the business world, and then, oh yeah, maybe that would be smarter than just keeping it within the military and at
Yeah.
military bases and stuff like that,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. So you know, you compartmentalize the risk in ways that, so it's like, well, Israel's doing this genocide. And it's like, yeah, but Israel's doing it. Israel, like, I think I mentioned to you last we spoke, the head of the UK Conservative Party was on Sky News and said the quiet part out loud and said both Israel and Ukraine are proxies for the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Which to someone like me, I'm like, duh.
Mm-hmm.
But to say that out loud on camera is, that's a hell of a thing to say. Whereas, not that long ago, only like a year or two ago, if you claimed that what was going on in Ukraine was a proxy war, you got called a Putin apologist,
Mm-hmm.
a conspiracy theorist
Mm-hmm.
for Russia, a pro-Russian conspiracy theorist, who's being irrational. But now it's like you have the head of the UK party saying that part out loud, or I'll talk to someone like my dad and be like, well, Israel and Ukraine are proxies for the Anglo-American Empire. And he's kind of like, okay, he doesn't really, he's not like, what? How that's now that is some Putin propaganda, which not that long ago he was kind of peddling that, whereas now it's slowly been normalized. Like, yeah, that's what it is. It is a proxy war. And, I have a good friend, Chris, that's living in Ukraine for the past couple of years. And he's like all in on Ukraine. He like married a woman from there. Went to his wedding a little over a year ago. Like he's all in. Like I sent him like, Jeffrey Sachs, the Columbia economics professor that, whatever. He's someone that is like, has been invited to write for the New York Times. They brought him on MSNBC before, but then he goes and he says some truth on there, and they're like, all right, like we got to stop bringing this guy on here, and I sent him, I don't know, maybe like close to half a year ago, like Jeffrey Sachs talking about the historical context that led up to the Ukraine war right now, and it's very much giving the relevant context that like my buddy Chris like never heard that context, or if he ever heard of that context, it was like this is Russian propaganda, or this is some shit like that. Where I'm like, dude, no, this isn't. This is Jeffrey Sachs. Like he's not some pro-Russian propagandist, or like with Russiagate, when I was questioning Russiagate in real time, as someone from the left, it was like I was being called a Trump supporter or a Putin apologist. And I was just like, no, like, guys, this is just like, this is our job as human beings, is to like, not, is to poke holes in things that need to have holes poked in them. When something is US empire propaganda, you need to call, like, I don't like Trump, but there are plenty of things to go after Trump for, like calling him a Russian agent, and that the elections were hacked. I'm like, you guys are just, you guys are, you're being idiots, useful idiots. And, you're becoming the thing, like that Nietzsche quote, beware that those out to hunt monsters don't become monsters themselves. When you stare long enough into the abyss, eventually the abyss stares back. And now all these people who feel they're like, I'm a leftist, I'm one of the good guys, I'm whatever. I'm like, no, you are like now like the most reactionary person I'm aware of. Like, whereas I'll go and hang out with Maria's mom, who in certain ways is the classical definition of a reactionary in some ways, but she is significantly less reactionary than all of these people, because I can at least talk to her and tell her things outside of her wheelhouse echo chamber, and she might not agree with me, but she's not like clutching her pearls and her monocle falling out and being like, how dare you, or you're one of the bad guys, which, when I'm around my brothers or their wives or certain
Sure.
decent society, or Steph's family, like, decent society, that if I say this, they get angry,
Mm.
you know, and some of them walk out of the room silently because, and hey, I guess that's better than getting nasty with me, but still, like, it's angering them,
Yes.
and they think what I'm saying is somehow dangerous or whatever,
Mm.
you know. And I'm like, you guys don't realize you've become those monsters. Like, you've become completely bigoted, which really just means intolerant to views and ideas and people that are different than your own. And like, you're completely bigoted and intolerant to this. And I'm like, and you can't beat me in this debate. I'm
Hmm.
not going to convince you. I'm not going to necessarily change your mind, but I'm going to bring up a whole lot of things you are ignorant of.
Hmm.
Like sending that Jeffrey Sachs
Hmm.
speech
Hmm.
to my buddy Chris. Like, I could, from his, he immediately called me back, and I didn't, unfortunately, couldn't. I wished I had been able to answer it right away. I called him back like 2 minutes later, and at that point he was like, "Oh, let's talk in 15 minutes," and we never did. And then so he just texted me. He was like, clearly Jeffrey Sachs is a very intelligent analyst. But that being said, everything he's saying is so completely opposite of everything I read and hear about. And I read The Economist, the New York Times, this, that, and I'm in Ukraine, and I'm talking to all these really smart Ukrainians, and everything Jeffrey Sachs is saying flies in the face of that. And so I can't deny he's a very intelligent and
Hmm.
informed
Hmm.
analyst, but
Hmm.
he's just like, I'm just going to dismiss this and not really consider it, basically, because it's not really going to alter how he sees things,
Hmm.
which, look, it doesn't take away from the fact that the people in Ukraine are fucked and have been fucked,
Yeah.
and have been bent over the wheelbarrow, and just, you know, taken to the woodshed and massacred, you know. But it's like the people that are like, oh, I stand with Ukraine, and I feel for those Ukrainian people, but like all these people with their like profile picture of their Ukrainian flag, and I stand with Ukraine, and angry that, when Trump had that meeting with Zelensky in the White House, that one a few months ago,
Yeah.
where he like dressed down Zelensky. My buddy Chris was like posting, pictures of Zelensky as like leader of the real leader of the free world.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, holy shit, like, you don't realize, like, come on, you're in Ukraine. Don't you know there haven't been elections in Ukraine in a while?
Hmm.
Don't you know that he's like outlawed and banned opposition parties and opposition media? You
Hmm.
know, like, and I'm not saying that America doesn't do that. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying Russia and China, I'm not, but I'm like, you're trying to say we're so different. And I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but it's very similar, you know.
Hmm.
And he was like, what, Russia jails or kills some of its dissident uh, journalists. I'm like, well, so does Ukraine.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Give me an example. And so I sent him an example of a pretty high profile
Hmm.
journalist that Ukraine killed. And he hadn't heard about it
Mm.
and looked into it. And after looking into it, was like, oh, well, his response was, well, yeah, of course, he was a pro-Russian blogger.
Hmm.
Oh, like,
So it's fine. So
yeah,
it was
so it's
fine. Hmm.
so it's fine then. So therefore, then it's fine if Russia or America or China or Great UK does it. It's like you've lost your own argument there.
Yeah, you have.
You know, And he's not even a pro-Russian blogger. He's just someone like me on this issue who's very critical of Anglo-American empire talking points or propaganda. You know, he's not even like a pro-Russian. Like, I'm not pro-Russian. I'm just very critical of our military-industrial complex and its propaganda. You know,
Mm.
now Chris would just, but I get all excited like I am now, and Chris
Hmm.
just, keeps this even keel voice, this NPR kind of voice, which to me is like a theatrical approach, whether it's witting or unwitting, where it's like, dude, that isn't what you think it is.
Mm.
And I know it has the desired effect on whatever you want to call the modern day, quote unquote, liberal or neoliberal or whatever you want to call that self identified group, you know. And if you don't go about it that way, you're going to just lose them. And I get that. But it's like, whatever. Like, I'm not here. Like kind of reminds me of like the Gore Vidal saying that, like, history is the most fascinating thing, one of the most fascinating things in the world, yet we go about it and we teach it in schools like it's the most boring
Mm.
thing in the world,
Right,
you know?
right, right.
And
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so someone like myself is like, all right, you know what? Like, I think there's a truth to that, and most people are trying to go about it in this. Well, when I talk, I speak in this even keel voice. I never raise my voice. The tone never fluctuates, and that's how you know I'm rational and credible. And it's like, whatever. That's a theatrical approach, and that works for you, and it's worked on you, and you want to perpetuate it. But you know what? I don't. Fuck that. That's not what I am. I'm more of like an artist, and I'm going into about this in a different way, and I'm not trying to bore people to death with like, I'm gonna have this monotone, and if I don't do, it's like, all right, so you're not gonna think I'm credible because I speak in this kind of raw, passionate way.
Hmm. Hmm.
Fine,
Hmm.
then think I'm not credible.
Yep.
Okay, but whatever. I'm not even gonna reach you anyway.
Right.
Because when I sent
Probably
you
not.
that version of Jeffrey Sachs, my buddy Chris was like, oh, I don't know about this, and just basically dismissed it. And my other friend, who has this very similar viewpoint and a similar group thing, I sent it to him. His response was like, what's this guy's agenda?
Hmm.
What's his angle? Like,
Hmm.
why is he saying, like what's his real motive? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that's like saying, like, what's Noam Chomsky's angle? Like, yes, everyone's got an angle in that
Hmm.
we're all a flawed human being,
Hmm.
incapable of objectivity,
Hmm.
but yet we do our best to try to tell the truth as best we see it, and approach something closer to objectivity, even though it'll never be truly objective, you
Hmm.
know. And I was just like, his response, and then he watched the thing, and he was like, what? He mentions that there was an agreement between I forgot it was Reagan or Bush at the time, Bush Senior, who were president, that there was a deal struck with Gorbachev, that Jeffrey Sachs and Stephen F. Cohen, all of these, like John Mearsheimer, all these like Ivy League or professors of history are all like, yes, no, there was this agreement between America and the Soviet Union, where we made a deal with them, where they would disband and collapse and become this new entity, the Russian Federation or whatever, and on condition that NATO did not march 1 inch to the east, and that was like a deal was struck. They shook hands, but but the whole thing is or people say, well, the Russians didn't get it in writing, like, so they got bamboozled, and
Hmm.
then we kept on marching NATO further and further east, and they couldn't do anything about it, and kind of like eventually, and that's some of, and my buddy who I sent this to was like, so where's this document? Where is this? And I was like, I don't know. I haven't looked for it, but I know that like Jeffrey Sachs says it, John Mearsheimer, Stephen F. Cohen, all these other like Ivy League professors, they cite this,
Mm.
all of them, and no one really denies it. They just say, well, they didn't get it in writing, so it's not binding in the way. So
Mm-hmm.
we pulled a fast one on them. I'm like, so none of them really deny it, but he was like, oh, that's weak. He
Mm-hmm.
was, and I was just like, and I'm like, you're not. I'm like, okay, you want to say that's weak or they got played or what, but fine, but that's relevant context to how we got here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want
Yes.
to act like it's not and ignore it, like, all right, you're not seeing the bigger, like you're partisan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whereas I'm partisan for humanity, like with Israel, I'm not against individual Israelis, but it's like, look, what you guys are doing, you've crossed the Rubicon and it's the point of no return. And it's like, you know, like I don't know if you're going to try to remove morality completely from the conversation. Which, all right, you want to like totally remove morality, then I don't know. I mean, I guess you know,
If it
I
means
don't
I'm
know. There's
right, then
all
yes.
sorts. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just
Will
becomes
that make me right? Will that make me like win the argument or whatever? Then
yeah,
yeah, then sure. Yeah, more there's no such thing as morality. It's completely subjective, and therefore whatever I want is correct, is the right thing. It's easy.
yeah,
It's easy.
yeah. Like you live in some apartment building, some random person in your apartment building, whatever, committed a crime, and the police come and then they just bomb the whole apartment complex and
Right.
kill everyone inside of it
Right.
or the vast majority of people and injure everyone else, and they're like, hey, you know what, he wouldn't come out, so we had to just kill them all. And it's like, wait, is that okay with you? Like, is that okay if your child is in that building visiting a friend, they get killed, having nothing to do with anything? You cool with that? Because that's kind of what we're talking about. We're talking about like,
We're talking about that exactly. That's not even a
yeah,
reach.
yeah, yeah, you know, and that's why, it's interesting because whatever the people promoting both military campaigns, whether it's what Israel's doing or Ukraine, is like these are things done as proxies for the empire, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes, and that brings me back to the point. My what I think is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
My hilarious point, because you're talking about the difference between Zionism and Judaism, and it was making me think. Yeah, because Judaism and Christianity have both been on this kind of underlying team, and it's so hilarious because you know both Judaism and Christianity, like it's like unbelievably clear like um here's some messages from God. And it's like, thou shalt not kill. Like it's like very clear actually if
Yeah,
you want to. And then the other one is treat your neighbor as yourself, right? If
yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
go Christianity. And
Uh-huh.
it's like these fun, it's like very clear, like you can't you can only serve one master, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
could um it's like very clear. Like
Yeah,
it's not like thou shalt not kill except when
yeah,
this happens or this, and of course when this happens, don't do that. Right? It's trying to create
yeah, yeah.
an objective morality of killing
Mm-hmm.
is not okay. Judgment is not okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um so it's almost it's so ironic beyond the highest form of irony, which is probably reality, is 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 what's actually happening. Then it's like, oh, to protect my tradition
Yeah,
of not killing, I'm going to have to kill.
right.
I have this really important spiritual path that teaches me not to kill or judge like others. And it's so important to me. I need to kill some people really bad.
Yeah, yeah. Like look at that bear over there. That bear's about to attack me, so I've got to shoot the bear. You
It's
know,
coming right for us. You remember that in
coming
South
right
Park?
for us. It's
Yeah,
like
for
no,
sure,
that
for
bear
sure.
is in a cage. It's not getting out of the cage.
And it's like no, and it's like the the gun is in the shape of a bear because your culture worship bears, and the number one rule of
Mhm.
your culture is don't fucking kill bears.
Yeah.
But then the bear is there and it's coming right for me, and it's like, oh, screw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Yeah. No,
Hmm.
it's like so clear. It's such a clear departure, and like you're saying, yeah, it's what Foucault or Krishnamurti both said similar stuff, that like with Christianity would have stayed a small cult if it hadn't had been folded in as an instrument of power, an instrument for
Of the Roman
militarization,
Empire.
to
Yeah.
mobile
Yeah.
militarization, to
Hmm.
create human shields, to
Hmm.
create death and destruction, because God basically told us to. Basically, Gate told us that we need to do this.
Hmm.
And therefore, if anybody says, nah, don't do that, they're obviously against God. They're obviously evil. They're subhuman.
Yeah.
That you need to get rid of them.
Hmm.
If
Yeah.
we bomb them and they blow up, then God allowed that, obviously. So we must be on the right track. If God didn't want us to drop atomic bombs, he would have made them not work.
Yeah. Right. Right. So it's self-evident. Yeah.
Yeah,
That,
excuses for militarization, excuses for human shields.
yeah.
Give people things to die for that they're willing to die for.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like the
And it's
promise of
usually
a,
through fear, right? Get them really
yeah.
scared and then sell them a violent answer. Yes, there
Yeah.
is a problem. It's called Jewish people, and we're going to kill them, right? You give them the three things. There's a problem.
Uh-huh.
I know the solution, and it's going to involve a little bit of gunplay, but don't worry, it's worth it, or
Hmm.
divinely inspired, or you'll die a martyr, or right. It's like every
Yeah.
every every religion has the promise that if you do this, then you'll get something awesome after you die. You'll get
Yeah.
some prize reward. So it's totally
Right.
worth it. Like, this is just the physical
It's
material world. What's really important is the world after this one, and that's what you should really be concerned about. So go kill those, go blow up that apartment building, like right now, please. Like, and people are like, okay, you're right. It kind of made sense.
It's like, yeah, it's like that guy in Popeye who's like, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. It's like, if you're just good now, you'll get a big reward in the next life.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it's like, well, how do we know on that? How do we actually check that? How do we actually find out that's true? What do you mean? Are you saying you don't believe
Right.
in the
Oh yeah. Oh
Lord?
God, don't say
You
that.
know,
Yeah.
like, wait, I didn't say it. I'm just
You
saying,
need
like,
more
wait, I'm
faith
getting a little
then. You're
skeptical.
not a true believer. You need more
Yeah,
faith. So you're
yeah,
showing that you don't have enough faith.
yeah,
So hurry up and get some. Go buy some
yeah,
more.
yeah. And it's interesting because Caitlin Johnson, you ever heard of her? She's where she's really good on foreign policy.
Okay.
You know,
Was she the money lady?
no, 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 that Catherine Austin
That
Fitz.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like Catherine Austin Fitz much more. But I mean, and talking about compartmentalization, like, so one of the reasons why I really like Caitlin Johnson as it pertains to like foreign policy, but when it came to COVID, she was a typical shit lib who was just like, we must listen to
Mm-hmm.
the authorities, and we must wear masks, and we must be distanced, and and we must get the vaccine, and we must, and it's interesting how these different group thinks, like, it gets compartmentalized so that they can see these things of truth, but those they just know. And it's like, in a way, it's like, yeah, because if we all saw these things as the same truths, we'd all like set aside our differences and realize, like, whoa, we have a lot more in common than we do, than we're different. And actually we can work together, and we can disagree on some things, but how about we focus on the things we agree with and work together on those? But that would fuck with empire. because empire wants to divide and conquer, divide and rule. And so once people, if people start realizing, like, that's where, like, people like myself or like Jimmy Dore, we just started getting called all sorts of names, by
Mm.
whatever. We got called Trumpers. We got called, you know, um, the dirtbag left. We got called conspiracy theorists, whatever. We got called anti-vaxxers. We got called all sorts of names, and it wasn't just names. It was like, it was on my birthday in like 2021, I think it was. My older brother, we went to my older brother's place, and both my brothers and my cousin were there and their families. So it was like a nice big group of, like, my dad and
Mm-hmm.
my aunt, who was my dad's sister, who was still alive back then. She's since died.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like, we were all there, and my aunt Barbara, I think I've told you about her before.
Yeah.
Actually, you were in contact with her briefly.
Yeah.
Um, I get there, and one of the great things about Aunt Barbara, for better or for worse, was she told you the truth whether you wanted to hear it or not.
Okay.
And I got there, and everyone was friendly with me,
Mm-hmm.
and it was my birthday. It was my birthday party.
Gotcha.
So it's like my day, and everyone's there for me, but I'm the only one there who hadn't gotten vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
Or me and Odin. You know,
Yes.
and but Odin's a kid, and they weren't I don't think they were available for kids yet, so they couldn't be held against him.
Right.
You know, because he wasn't allowed to get it yet, or something like
Yeah.
that. But me, I could have gotten it and chose not to. So therefore, they're angry at me, and even though it's my birthday, they kind of want to punish me.
Mm-hmm.
To varying degrees depending on the individual. Like, my
Okay.
brothers didn't feel that way. My brothers might have privately felt that way,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't going to say it out loud, and they weren't going to
Mm-hmm.
express it to me. Whereas I had known through Steph that, like, their wives, all of their
Mm-hmm.
wives were like, or at least most of their wives were like,
Well, we were supposed to be pissed at people who didn't get the vaccine because it meant you were like gonna make it like worse and last longer, because if we just all got the vaccine, it would go away. So it
totally.
was this idea that, well, if everyone would just get it, this will go away like forever. So why would some people just like slow us down and not do it just because they're like worried? They're telling us we can either get rid of it or it's gonna like, or it'll or doomsday. There wasn't really the secondary, anytime, what I can remember anyway is anytime something like, well, it's like everybody's gonna get it eventually anyway, and herd immunity and
Yeah,
that
herd immunity.
you're gonna have to. It's not viruses. That's just not how viruses work. They mutate and
Yeah,
change and come
yeah,
back around and go through ups
yep,
and downs and blah 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 blah
yep,
blah. But the way I felt, because I that was how I felt it was being delivered to me, was like, oh, we can, if we'll just do 3 steps, like shut the fuck up, wear your mask, and get the vaccine, we can actually like eliminate this. Like we can win.
yeah,
Like we can win
yeah,
this.
yeah,
We can checkmate and win the game. And there's some people who are like, no, I don't want to checkmate and win the game. It's like, what the fuck? We were supposed to be pissed off about it. We
yeah,
were supposed
yeah,
to. I remember
yeah,
stuff in the media where it's like government people being like, there's like idiots out there not getting it, or
yeah,
like the White
yeah,
House being like, there's a winter coming, and
yeah.
if you have it, you're gonna
Dark
fucking
winter.
die. It was crazy.
Yeah, dark winter was the term, which was a weird psyop. Dark winter was previously a weird, like, false flag psyop that they decided to repurpose that term, dark winter, and use it now. Which, to people, like, to someone like myself, I was like, whoa, why are they repurposing this term, dark winter, to describe those of us who are refusing the vaccine? And I was like, that was ominous to me. That was like,
Well,
I
and I'm
wasn't,
wondering if it
I
was
mean,
partially to Game of Thrones because the whole winter is coming thing.
Winter's
This,
oh
which is like related to
yep,
like, it wasn't just winter, it was like
yep,
this it's a zombie thing
yep,
coming for you,
yep,
you know.
totally.
It was a deep messaging for sure, for sure.
Agreed, agreed. It was like a multi-pronged. It was going to kill many birds with that one stone of that term, Dark Winter.
Yeah,
Not only was it,
and it worked, right? It's like we still remember it now. I didn't remember the dark
yeah,
winter part, but I remember the winter part. I remember the threat.
yeah,
I remember the underlying
yeah,
threat. I for sure.
yeah, yeah. And I remember like I was at that birthday celebration. I was like, you know, my Aunt Barbara was like, Josh, she's like, everyone here is afraid of you. And I was like, what?
Mm,
She's like, yeah, they're all afraid of you because you didn't get the shot.
mm.
And I was like, yeah, but you can all tell I'm not sick. If I was like coughing and sneezing or
Yeah,
blowing my
right. Yeah.
nose, like, but back then it was like, no, but you can still spread it without being symptomatic. And it's like, can you really? But they're like, but that's what Fauci and the papers and the CDC says, so it must be true. And I'm like, maybe that's true, but I remain skeptical, but I guess you never know. But unless someone sneezes on you or coughs on you or picks their nose and puts on, like, how are you going to get or breathes into your mouth? Like unless like you're not getting it. Like that's why like we hang out with people, and if someone's like symptomatically sick, maybe you're like, hey, let's not hang out. But we're not that worried because catching things when someone's asymptomatic is very rare. Very rare.
Well, and also the flip side is that's also totally a normal part of being a human being. Yeah, we're catching viruses all the time and fighting them off, and sometimes not, and then we get sick. I mean, it's a disgusting compost heap of a world out here. We're like breathing in skin cells of every other thing
Mm-hmm.
around us, and like
Uh-huh.
microorganisms and bacteria. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a shithole out here.
Yeah.
I mean that in the best possible way, but really,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
idea that we're like, I'm clean and that isn't, and it's just complete nonsense. Like I remember
Yeah.
on Mythbusters, they did a thing where it was like, there's the idea that when you flush the toilet, it
It shoots
sends
up a
like an
little bit.
aerosol
Yeah.
of shit water into the air, and that's why you should like store your toothbrush in like a holder or some shit like that, right? And so they were testing this myth, and it was two interesting things, I guess. First interesting thing, it's totally true. That's totally true. But what they found out is there's that fecal shit water on everything everywhere. It's not just the fucking bathroom. It's reality. It's reality. It's everywhere.
Mm.
That's how it works. That's how the universe works. It mixes shit naturally. Shit slams into each other and splatters. You got dead stuff over there. I mean, it's just crazy. That's actually how the world fucking works. And this idea that you can be clean or safe or pure or
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
suffer again or not get sick,
Mm-hmm.
right? We all want that so bad. Oh my God,
Yeah.
right? Just no more suffering. Like I just got
Yeah.
to get the jab or be
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
Christian
Yeah.
or shower 5 times a day
Yeah.
or wear
Wash my hands.
perfumes or
Yeah.
use hand sanitizer or
Yeah.
something like that, and then
Yeah.
I'm like pure and good and okay. I think it's selling a deeper desire of no suffering, that if you just do
Totally.
this you won't suffer. It's like, okay, thank you for fucking telling me.
Which in a way, it's interesting that as you're saying it, it's like the state becoming God.
Yes,
Because right, what God
they're
offers
selling
you
purity.
is this thing of don't worry, it's all trust the plan. You know, it's got all part of God's plan, and your children are all getting gang raped right now, but it's good. It's good because this is God's plan,
Right.
and don't worry. Like Trump is not. He's saying there are no Epstein files. There will be no release. This thing is a Democrat hoax. But don't worry. Wink, wink. He's playing 5D chess.
Right.
Trust his plan.
He is also going to release them too. He's all
Yeah,
you can play both sides at the same time. It's
yeah.
so great.
And it's like there you go. Just your mind is set at ease. Just relax. things will all be fine and
Hmm.
taken care of. Nothing to see here. Just move along, you
Yep.
know? And it's
Yes.
like, it ultimately gives people, it pacifies them. It makes them feel safe, like wearing the stupid masks, which did pretty much nothing,
Yeah.
you know? And there was no sign. I mean, because I remember like the very beginning, right before the lockdowns, Rogan had some infectious disease expert or something like that on. And this guy was basically like, look, I know everyone is hoping that masks are going to protect us, but the
Flatten the
reality is,
curve.
yeah, is like they don't really work. They might make it so that you might give a little bit less likely to spread whatever you have to someone else, but wearing a mask is not really going to protect you from getting infected. And I met Rogan was like, "Oh no, like come on."
Hmm.
Like I was hoping these masks would do the trick and
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
guy's like, "No." And it was like, yeah, there's just we wear them because it's arguably better than nothing, but it's really not doesn't really do much and certainly doesn't do what people are hoping it does you know and but then it was like, and Fauci even said that at the beginning. you know Fauci even said that on a major interview, and he was like, look, masks don't really do what people think they do. They don't protect you in the way. In fact, they could increase the likelihood because people touch their mask, they fidget, and then you end up
Hmm.
like it defeats a lot of the purpose. And then later he said, well, I lied about that because I wanted to save that protective gear for the Met people and doctors and nurses because we had too little of that stuff. you know it was like, and then like a month later, he, comes out and said he lied and everyone should be masking. Everyone needs to wear masks, you know, and I would go to drop off my son at school, and I was the only parent not wearing a mask outside with everyone else, and a lot of people would just give me these
Of
looks,
course.
like you're one of the bad ones.
Exactly.
You're making this go on
Exactly.
longer.
Exactly.
If everyone would just do their part and not be so selfish, then this would all have been over a while ago because of people like you, it's still going on. And like one of the little girls, because I was like the only adult, or pretty much like the only adult that would play with the kids. And so like after school, I'd go to the playground with all the kids and I
Right.
would
Right.
chase them around, and I'd play like tag and shit like that with them. And it was awesome. And like then the parents started liking me, you
Right.
know, like they're like, oh, you're doing God's work because no one is willing to play with the kids. And it's so great that you are. And because the kids kind of need this. And I'm like, well, I'm like, yeah, you're welcome, but you could have been a little nicer to me about some of the other stuff too,
Yeah.
but whatever. Well, like every time I go to Maria's and I dock the bike in a Park Slope and I'd walk to her place outside, walking by myself with no mask, like people would just look at me and they just
Yeah.
like
Like, what are you
just
doing?
like with their stupid retarded mask on, they're trying to let me know with their eyes that they're just really angry at me, and they're just so angry. And I just like look at them and like giggle or laugh or something. And then like eventually that Cochrane meta-analysis came out and was like, yeah, the masks don't work, they don't
Hmm.
protect you, they're
Hmm.
not doing anything. And it was like, yeah, motherfuckers, you see, like we knew this. And there's like that Mark Crispin Miller guy who was the professor of propaganda and media studies at
I
NYU.
remember. I remember you talking about him for a while. Hmm.
Yeah, and he got fired because he was having, for his propaganda class and media studies class, he was having students challenge
Yeah.
orthodoxies. And one
Right.
of the orthodoxies that he questioned and had them look into was whether or not masks are actually protective. And they were looking into that, and then one of his students fucking Karened him and basically was like, this guy's dangerous.
Mm.
He's having us question the efficacy of masks. And it's like, okay, he's teaching a media studies and propaganda class. That's exactly what he should be doing, but the fact that you are so stupid, so ignorant and so like just I guess fear based that like you're gonna you rat this guy out and you end up starting this thing that gets this guy fired.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this guy who is truly one of the last remaining good guys.
Mm.
I mean, this guy was like a lefty who was like that 9/11 was shady and inside job. Almost everything. Like he's like kind of like you and I, where like people who come from the left that we go whatever, we go off the reservation, where you're supposed to be a good little liberal progressive leftist. You're not supposed to question those things, like when I go on like Democracy Now, and it's like, oh my God, RFK Jr. is questioning, the COVID jabs and saying they're not safe. This is terrible. He's an anti-vaxxer. And then I go into the comments section, and there's like a couple of comments where the people are like, I hate him. He's an anti-vaxxer. But like the vast majority of, even for Democracy Now, was like, wait, are you guys still so stuck in the past that you don't realize that these COVID vaccines were a disaster and they did so much more harm than good? And I was like pleasantly surprised to see like the people who were the commentator, commenting in the Democracy Now space are like saying this, and most people are agreeing with them. And I'm like, Democracy Now is out of touch with
It sure has been for a while.
Yeah, it has been for a while. I mean, it was giving a big platform to the Russiagate nonsense. I mean, in all fairness, it would give Glenn Greenwald every so often, they would let him come on and debunk some of that stuff, but they were promoting it, and and that was such a empire propaganda, because that was directly about escalation of tensions with Russia, which is what the empire wants for whatever various reasons, not least of which it's got like $95 trillion worth of resources there, which was like Democracy Now used to all be about, like, oh, gee, we're invading Iraq. I wonder if that has anything to do with oil.
Yeah.
Oh, we're invading another Middle Eastern country. I wonder if that has to do with oil, and it's like, like with Russia, it's just like, no, or Venezuela. It's like, no, it's like, these are just bad dictators and they have to be taken out. It's like, what? Like, I don't know. It's just crazy, because that was like their whole MO, was being against that. And they just quietly switched our coffee with Folgers crystals, to see if we would notice, and it's like, what has happened here? You guys used to be the good guys, and yeah.
Except they're responsible for this whole, what my mom would call the 10,000 feet in the air tradition
View.
of just,
what's the bigger picture
ended today, the Dow is down 2%, like this, just talk about it in this certain way, and you don't really need to do anything about it. You just need to like be informed and like talk about it like in this way. And that's like your, because that's that right, because every group has their Fox News, right? Every group has their Fox News that they go to because they think, oh yeah, this is the best. But then like we're talking about, we're going to run into, no matter who we are, whether it's me or a radio show or a group of people, you're going to run into confirmation bias, where you're going to just start to only see the stuff you want, and you're going to, subconsciously and consciously avoid anything that challenges that view. But then if you value knowledge and self-criticism because of a philosophical or spiritual basis or something, then that's the stuff that you start seeking out is, well, what's the other side? What are all the other sides? There's like 1,000, 10,000 ways to look at everything. So if I
Hmm.
only look at one, I might be missing something really interesting. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes then you see Candace Owens saying some shit that you agree with. And
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
shocking moment. And it should be,
Yeah.
because it should go, oh, I guess actually the truth is some of the shit they say I think is ridiculous, and some of the shit they say is right on, and some of the shit they
Yeah.
say I don't give a fuck about, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That it can't be so NPR is right and Fox News is wrong. It just can't, it
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be way more complex than that, and our identities don't want it that way. But then otherwise we're just dealing in confirmation bias, and
Hmm.
we can so easily become human meat shields
Yep.
for those, because then NPR says, "Oh, we got to go kill these people," and
Right. Right.
people will be like, "Yeah, we should."
Yep.
If
Yep.
NPR is saying we got to
Yeah.
kill them, then we got to, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, and you can get people on board for killing, basically, or
Yeah.
for the threat of killing. Right? It's like we
Yeah.
try the threat, just like in chess. The threat is always worse than the execution, because really you want them to dance to your tune. You don't
Hmm.
want to have to drop the atomic bomb on him and shit
Yeah.
like that. You'd rather, like, hey, if you don't, I'll drop the bomb. And then they say, how high do you want me to jump? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, awesome, great, great. Now that you have found reason and will do whatever
Yeah.
we tell you to do,
Yeah.
cool. Like, the threat is speak quietly and carry a large stick, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
it's a psychological strategy, you know. So you need people. You'd rather just threaten than have to do anything,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
as long as you can, and the threat, I guess, gains power as you have more people behind it. If it's
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
crazy guy
As
on a
if it's a
hill saying,
bigger
"I'm going to
stick.
kill you," who
Yeah.
cares? But then he goes to his village and gets 20 guys, and it's like, oh shit! Like,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
we actually have to deal. We've got to deal with this now. We have to
Yeah.
go to the meeting table, or we got to kill them first, or we're okay. Tonight we're going to sneak in and kill them first, because if we don't, they're going to come kill us tomorrow. You know,
Hmm.
so it's the killing. It's the threat of killing, and then actual killing. And
Yeah.
how do you manage that with people? And is that a meta strategy itself?
Well,
If
because
this is
it's
a meta strategy,
poker.
if it's from
What
the Draco
you're talking about poker.
overlords, is this how you control
Yeah.
planets,
Yeah.
basically? Is this the kind of the if you
Hmm.
want to slow it down and you want to control this convenience store for as long as possible, then you make sure you try and get the employees to fight with each other, so that they don't ever wonder why they're getting paid less than minimum wage, why
Yeah.
there's no AC in the store, why they can't sit down at a chair while they're at the registers. You just get them
Uh
fighting
huh.
with each other somehow, for as long as possible, because I just want to run the convenience store. I don't have to deal with these motherfuckers quitting or burning the fucking store down.
Yeah.
I don't want them fighting so bad that they burn the store down, right? It's like you need some kind of office politics to kind of wrap people up in it, and keep the business going, because ultimately I need the business
Hmm.
to keep going, but I also need them to not quit,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, and you need them to not know that employee A, who does the same exact job as employee B, makes, you know, 10% more per hour. And you don't want employee B knowing that, because then they can start demanding more. And, you know, like, so you want to divide and rule. You want to
Mm-hmm.
have it, because if everyone realizes, like, wait a second, like, we can get together, we can do something about this,
Right.
that, like, then that becomes like, it's like the reverse of what you were just talking about with
Yeah.
a threat versus a threat with 20 people behind you,
Yes.
you know, a bigger stick, you know, or a bigger bomb, or what have you, you know. And you know, I wanted to talk about the whole thing with your mom, you know, with the shot and still wanting the boosters, which is like, wait, people still want these fucking stupid things?
They look
It's
forward
like,
to them. It's like booster season coming up. I
yeah,
gotta get a new winter coat and get the next
yeah,
booster. It's
booster,
like
yeah,
collecting Pokemon cards now.
yeah. And it's like, wait, why are you like, it's like, don't you understand? They made this shit a while ago. They mass produced it a while ago. They shipped it out a while ago, you know, and they're saying it's going to be accurate for the modern, the recent strain, relevant for like when they were
Yeah,
giving out the
right. It just doesn't
shot,
even make any sense.
it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's like, wait, if you've gotten your vaccine and it's protected you, then why the fuck are you angry about anyone else not getting it? Because are you actually secretly the anti-vaxxer? Are you the one that secretly doesn't believe in the vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
Because like, if you believe in it and it protects you, then that should be that. You know, like you're protected. You don't need someone else to get it for you. You know, and so and I know there are probably like a hole or two you could poke in that and say, I don't know, maybe
Maybe it does help some people. Maybe for
yeah,
some people there is a reduction in symptoms or something, right? You can probably find some people, right? Like, or you can at least pretend. You be like, I feel so much better. Yeah, it was great. Like placebo response is like the strongest thing ever. So
yeah,
once the person is like, oh my
yeah,
God, I feel so much better. Like, or I always get 3 flus and I only got one this year. So like it's obviously it worked, or something, right? It's like
yeah,
so easy to self-report, or so placebo effect is like the strongest fucking thing.
yep, yep,
That's what all medication has to try and overcome in FDA trials, and most of them
yep,
fail, beating out a
yeah,
placebo response.
yeah. I know. And I think I might have said this to you before that like I had heard whatever a year or two ago that an RFK Jr. said that like basically I think he said something either none or almost none of the childhood vaccines have actually been like pre-licensed tested against a placebo.
Mm,
They all got tested against like not a saline shot or
mm-hmm,
nothing. It was
mm-hmm,
like of a previous vaccine that was known to be, or a previous vaccine or product that was known to be problematic.
mm-hmm.
So it's like if you wanted to prove that your new,
Yeah, that's a
your
great
new
way. Yeah,
Coca-Cola drink
yeah,
is you test it against
some
a
dirt.
pre-existing unhealthy
Yeah,
Coca-Cola, one that is, and this one has 10% less sugar.
yeah,
So it's a world of difference.
yeah,
It's like, well, I guess compared to that piece of shit, it's a little bit better, but compared to nothing, it's worse for you.
yeah.
It's like it's a clever way to you know, rig trials, and it's like, wait, there should be no conflict of interest. Like everyone, like I know so many people that were like complaining about him, and now I have complaints about him because it does look like he's sold out. It does look like while he's doing more than many of his predecessors, he definitely has changed his tune. It's just like even if you want to think whether it's Trump or Obama or Bernie or whoever, like they're the good guy, they're going to help us. It's like, like this system is just such that if they were really fucking with it, they'd be out.
Yeah,
Like they,
probably so. Probably so. I mean, yeah, that was probably the move since Eisenhower is we
yeah,
need to from Eisenhower up, and especially kind of with an exclamation point on JFK.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like we have to get rid of presidential power. It
yeah,
cannot be it must be moved to need to know, and as little as that as possible. And we also
yeah,
need them to have as little power as possible from now on.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's been extraordinarily successful.
It really has, really has. You got to go.
Um, I got to get ready to go.
Okay.
I'll see you next Wednesday for the
Yeah.
next
See you next
episode.
Wednesday.
I got to start posting these. It's actually an amazing reason because they take up too much space on my computer. So I'm like, oh shit, I got to post these. So it's like, it's going to force me to post this shit. It's going to be great.
Nice, nice.
Okay. I'll talk to you next time, man.
I'll talk to you next week,
Awesome
buddy.
as always.
Awesome. Later, buddy.
Bye.